and I am trying something for the first time, and that is making a floral arrangement for my mom for Mother's Day. Like many people, I have actually made floral arrangements before casually as a child, picking up flowers on the side of the road and bunching them together in a bouquet. But this is my first floral arrangement after I've watched people who teach flower arranging and then attempting to do it myself in a vase. So I thought it would be a good idea to find random plants in my yard and see if I can save some money by using them as part of the floral arrangement instead of buying everything. It has worked out later on 50-50. I also purchased some flowers from the grocery store and also found a cool looking branch that was going to be trimmed for sure. So I did it early myself from a bush that's outside of the grocery store. Karma did teach me a lesson immediately as I was caught off guard by the very sharp thorns on this branch. In the end, I didn't use half of the clippings I got from my own yard. It was a nice try, and I learned that because my garden is not one that is only filled with curated plants, so the more wild-looking plants, while I like how they look in the yard, I didn't really find them fitting or useful in the floral arrangement. Some of them did work really well, like the pine, but a lot of them, either the shape didn't work once they were off of their main plant, or most of the leaves had holes or rips, or the entire plant just looked kind of droopy and dead just a couple of hours after the cutting. So I guess there's a reason why flowers are so expensive to buy. It felt good that I got some free plants. Otherwise, I would be feeling like I'm living too decadently. I'm also proud of myself that I did not go out and buy a vase. I used one that I think my mom got from a garage sale many years ago. And with that, I was finally ready to start the actual flower arranging. As soon as I sat down, I panicked inside because I realized I was completely lost and I had no idea what I'm doing and I had no idea where to start. I started just picking up the more filler pieces and putting them in the vase one by one, and they all looked kind of bad in my eyes until finally I put one of the pine clippings in, and it looked kind of cute in the vase. I was very relieved and happy that I got the pine clippings on a whim. They're really very dramatic plants, I think, and managed to look kind of cute without me even trying. And given that the main flower I had purchased was the chrysanthemums, I thought the pine clippings really matched it well because pines had the many thin needles and the chrysanthemums have the thin and pointy petals. I was also very lucky that I clipped way too many filler pieces that couldn't possibly fit into this tiny vase. I thought I went overboard, but turns out I did it exactly right because had I not gotten too much, I would have ran out of options and this whole project would have failed as soon as I started arranging, and I would feel sad and might have given up on trying it ever again. So I would heavily recommend if you were starting out with your first floral arrangement to also get a lot of fillers. Buy them, get them from your yard, get anything. Get too much for the size of your container. So with that clipping of pine that saved my entire project, now sitting beautifully in the vase, I started picking up the main flowers, the chrysanthemums, and I realized I was tricked by the grocery store lighting when I purchased them. Because in the grocery store, I thought these flowers were naturally the colors they were. They were pink with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of light purple in them. And they looked so awesome. But now that I'm looking at them in this evening lighting, I realized it was very obvious that the yellow and the light purple or lavender colors were painted on. There were even chunky paint strokes that you could see on the petals, and I did not notice this at all in the store. So in the future, that would be something I'm looking for. It's not super important because if I didn't notice it in the store, people might not notice it if they're watching this video. So it's no big deal, but it was just quite a shocker for me that it's, I guess, a common practice to paint the flowers. So one can't assume that whatever colors they look like in the store must be the natural colors. On the contrary, the purple branch that I found outside of the grocery store, after closer inspection now, I find it just as beautiful as I did when I first saw it fluttering in the wind. I think this is why trying new things are fun, even if the new thing is something simple like this. I'm discovering and learning so much, and not just about flowers and what I like. I actually found out some interesting history of the vase that I'm using. At first, I thought it just looked pretty, but I accidentally did a Google image search of the vase, and I found out it's called Dalian glass. And Dalian is a city in China. And apparently, Dalian produced so many similar vases and decorative glassware from the 1950s to the 80s, and they were exporting massive amounts of them to countries in the West. Apparently, Dalian glass was very commonplace in American homes in the mid-century because the Italian Murano glass was very popular back then, but they were a lot more expensive. And the Dalian glass had a similar style and were a lot more affordable. But they're not the same. The Dalian glass had its own distinct characteristics. A lot of them have these smoky swirls on the glass, and the swirl on each Dalian glass is unique. So there is a handmade element to it. I was born in China in the 80s and lived there until the year 2000. So I think one of the reasons that I found this glass so beautiful is even though I didn't know of its history, I immediately felt some sort of nostalgia as soon as I laid eyes on it. And I didn't know why, but now I do. And nowadays, there are many people who specifically collect vintage Dalian glass. And I don't even think that same factory exists anymore in Dalian. I took a quick look on sites like eBay and Etsy, and a single glass is relatively cheap, like $20-$30, but people are selling full set of Dalian glass with a carafe and several glasses for hundreds of dollars. And that's just amazing. I do want to note that regarding the history of Dalian glass, I was not able to find a lot of official information online. For example, from an old reputable newspaper or from an article from a well known magazine or a scholarly article. And the only sources that Google used seems to be this article written by a collector who used to work at Sotheby's, so he kind of knew what he was talking about. It would be an interesting project to delve into to find the actual history. I am not sure how to do that type of research though, because there's very little information I can find online. If I were ever in China and if I knew somebody who lives in Dalian, I think this would be a fun question to ask them. With that being said, I tentatively believe the history of Dalian glass Google has given me because my mom did buy this vase in the style distinct to Dalian glass from a local home garage sale in Midwest America. And when I search for Dalian glass, not in English but in Chinese, I get the same results that there were glass factories in Dalian back in the 50s and 60s, and they were producing decorative glass that were exported abroad. And there are real Etsy and eBay listings of them selling Dalian glass to collectors. So all this combined makes me believe that the history is real. And this history feels so wild and was so unexpected for me because when we think of the mid century in the West, it is completely different from what the mid century of the 20th century was like in China. Modern life can be very similar everywhere. We use the same smartphones, scroll through the same social media apps, gets impacted by the global economy, use similar amenities in our daily lives like modern toilet and the internet and hybrid cars and whatnot. But in the 50s, life was a lot more different. I think when we think of the 50s, the mid century, in the US and the West, we think of the baby boom, where the economy was vibrant. After World War II, people were having lots of babies, people were experiencing new things in design. It was a time of prosperity and style. And in China as a nation was trying to figure things out. There were several episodes of extreme poverty. There was an amount of closedness from the rest of the world. Life was just nothing like the West. For example, my parents were born in the 60s in China, and when they were children, there was a lot of scarcity in commodities. You couldn't just go to the store and just buy what you wanted, even if you had money. You were assigned tickets for anything you could get, including food, including things like bikes, almost everything. You could only get what these tickets you were able to get assigned allow you to get. Otherwise, you'd have to go to the black market or be in a special circumstance. Something like the wartime rations. That was their life in the 60s and also part of the 70s. And to think during the same time, this factory in Dalian were making vast quantities of decorative glass that was very popular with their
customers in places like the United States.
The 1950s and 60s was also a time when the US and China were producing a lot of propaganda against each other because they were in a Cold War. It was in 1972 when the first US president visited China that started the normalization of relations between the two nations and ended 25 years of isolation. But I just found out isolation is not what I thought it was.
There was trade of decorated glass. I find it kind of amazing and heartwarming. I don't know why, but I do. I just like that even back then, people around the world had a connection somehow.
And now this pretty looking vase also has a fun history behind it. And I've also finished with my very first floral arrangement. It has been 2 days since the arrangement was finished, and the flowers are all remaining very beautiful. Partially, I think, because I put it in a shady area. There's water in the glass along with a little bit of flower food, perfectly in time for Mother's Day.